The bread was still warm when Elena placed it on the stone threshold. Her breath misted in the pre-dawn air, pale and fleeting as a ghost. The manor loomed above her, 3 stories of blackened stone and shuttered windows, ivy strangling the western wall like frozen veins. No light had ever burned in those windows. No voice had ever answered her knock. Until today. Elena straightened, wiping flour dust from her palms onto her apron. Her fingers moved in the practiced silence that had defined her 19 years. No words, no sound. Only the language of kneading dough and measuring time. 100 mornings she had climbed this hill. 100 loaves left like prayers at a tomb. The village called it foolishness. Old Marta spat whenever Elena passed, muttering about curses and the unnatural quiet of the Blackwood estate. But Elena's mother had taught her this ritual with trembling hands before the fever took her. Feed what hungers in the dark, and it will not come hunting. The door opened. Elena's heart seized. She stumbled backward, nearly losing her footing on the weathered steps. No creak of hinges announced it. The door simply was open, a rectangle of deeper shadow against the gray stone. A man stood in that darkness. Not a man. The realization struck her like cold water. He was too still, too perfect, carved from marble rather than born from flesh. His hair fell dark and straight past his shoulders, framing a face that could have been painted by the masters if the masters had known how to capture hunger barely leashed. His eyes were silver in the gloom, reflecting what little light touched them. He wore black. Everything about him was black except those eyes and the unnatural pallor of his skin. "You've been faithful," he said. His voice rolled through the air like distant thunder, felt more than heard. 100 days without fail. Elena's throat worked uselessly. She pressed her fingers together in the gesture that meant thank you in the silent. Language her mother had taught her, though she knew he wouldn't understand. Those silver eyes tracked the movement with predatory focus. "You cannot speak." It wasn't a question. He tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her want to flee and stay in equal measure. "Yet you come, day after day, leaving sustenance at my door, though I have never acknowledged it, never thanked you." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of old wood and something metallic like copper, like rain on stone. Elena forced herself to remain still. Her mother's warning echoed in memory. Never run from what sees you. Why? The vampire for that was surely what he was descended one step. The motion was liquid, inhuman grace that defied the weight of gravity. "What do you want from me, little baker?" Elena's hands trembled as she signed again, slower this time. "Nothing." Then, after a heartbeat's hesitation, "Kindness." His expression didn't change, but something flickered behind those eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or pain so old it had calcified into something harder. "There is no kindness in me." He took another step, and Elena could see him clearly now in the gray light bleeding across the eastern hills. Beautiful and terrible, like a sword unsheathed. "Only hunger and memory, girl. You should not have come here. Should not have..." He stopped. His head snapped toward the forest path below, every muscle tensing with predatory alertness. Elena followed his gaze and saw nothing but morning mist curling through the trees. But she heard them. Voices. Men's voices, rough with drink and purpose. The mute girl went up again. Someone shouted. "Told you she's been sneaking to the old place. Probably stealing silver, the freak. Or worse. Laughter. Cruel and bright. Let's see what she's really doing up there." Elena's pulse hammered against her ribs. She recognized those voices, Garrett and his brothers, the blacksmith's sons who'd made sport of her silence since childhood. She'd seen the way they looked at her lately, speculation darkening to intent. The vampire's expression had gone utterly blank. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped to something that raised every hair on Elena's arms. "How many?" She held up 4 fingers. "Armed?" She nodded, remembering the hunting knives they always carried, the way Garrett liked to test his blade against fence posts while watching her pass. The vampire was silent for 3 heartbeats. Then he extended one pale hand toward her, palm up. An invitation. A question. "They will not touch you gently," he said softly. "Not 4 men who think themselves hunters cornering prey. I can hear their hearts, little baker. I know what they intend." The voices grew closer. Boots on stone, ascending the hill. "You have fed me for 100 days without asking payment." Those silver eyes held hers, and Elena saw something ancient and weary staring back. "I am in your debt. Come inside, and I will keep you safe." or run now, and I will forget I ever saw you." The footsteps were closer now. Garrett's voice. "There she is, at the vampire's door, just like the stories said." Elena looked at the vampire's outstretched hand, at the darkness beyond the open door, at the manor that had stood empty and feared for as long as she'd been alive. Her mother's voice whispered through memory. "The living can be crueler than any dead thing, Elena. Remember that." She placed her flour-dusted hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, cool, impossibly strong, gentle as a sigh. He drew her across the threshold in one fluid motion, and the world beyond the door was suddenly candlelight and shadows, stone corridors, and the scent of old wood and dried lavender. The iron door shut behind them with a sound like a coffin ceiling. In the sudden silence, Elena heard her own ragged breathing, felt the vampire's hand still clasping hers, his thumb resting against her racing pulse. "Welcome to Thornhaven Manor," he said, and for the first time, something that might have been a smile ghosted across his perfect features. "I am Lord Cassian Thornwood, and you, little baker, have just accepted sanctuary from a monster." Outside, Garrett's fist hammered against the door. His shouts echoed through the stone, muffled but furious. Cassian didn't even glance toward the sound. He was watching Elena's face, reading something there she couldn't name. "They'll leave by sunset," he murmured. "No man with sense lingers at a vampire's door after dark. But that leaves us with a complication." His hand released hers slowly, as if giving her time to flee. "You cannot go home tonight. Perhaps not for several nights, until their anger cools and their courage fails them." Elena swallowed hard, signed, "I understand. Do you?" Those silver eyes seemed to look through her, past flesh and bone to something deeper. "Do you understand what it means to be alone with me in this place? What I am? What I have done?" She met his gaze steadily, then reached into her apron pocket and withdrew a small object, the wooden cross her mother had carved, worn smooth from years of holding. She placed it in his palm. Cassian stared at it. Then, slowly, he closed his fingers around the cross. Smoke didn't rise. His flesh didn't burn. "Your mother taught you well," he said quietly, returning the cross to her. "But faith alone won't protect you here. I am what the stories say I am. I have killed. I will kill again, when hunger or necessity demands it." Elena tilted her head, studying him. Then her hands moved in quick, decisive gestures. "But not me." It wasn't a question. Something shifted in his expression, surprise again, deeper this time, and beneath it, something that might have been loneliness so vast it had its own gravity. "No," Cassian agreed softly. "Not you, Elena Ashford, the mute baker's daughter who left bread at a monster's door for 100 days. He turned, his coat sweeping behind him like raven wings. "Come, I'll show you to a room where you can rest. And tonight," he paused at the edge of the candlelight, half his face in shadow. "Tonight, I will tell you the truth of what you've bound yourself to, and you will decide if kindness was worth the price of knowing a vampire's name." His footsteps were silent on the stone as he led her deeper into the manor, into the heart of Thornhaven's darkness. Behind them, Garrett's pounding faded to furious silence, and Elena, her hand still tingling from the touch of something not quite dead and not quite alive, followed the vampire into the shadows, knowing that whatever came next, the girl who had climbed the hill with warm bread in her hands would not be the same one who descended. If she descended at all, the corridor stretched endlessly before them, lit by candles that burned without wax dripping, their flames too steady to be natural. Elena's boots whispered against stone, worn smooth by centuries, each step taking her deeper into a world that shouldn't exist. Cassian moved ahead of her like a shadow-given form, never quite touching the ground. His silence was different from hers born of broken vocal cords, his of something that had forgotten the need for human noise. They passed portraits whose subjects' eyes seemed to follow, furniture draped in white cloth, ghostly and still. A grandfather clock frozen at midnight, its pendulum motionless behind cracked glass. "This wing hasn't been opened in 80 years, Cassian said without turning. "The servants fled during the war. They never returned." Elena's fingers itched to sign a question, but he couldn't see her hands with his back turned. She settled for studying the breadth of his shoulders, the way candlelight caught in his dark hair like trapped starlight. He stopped before a door of pale wood, incongruous among the heavy oak. His hand hesitated on the handle, the first uncertain gesture she'd seen from him. "This was my sister's room," he said quietly. She would have liked you, I think. She was kind, like you. It killed her. The door opened onto softness. Silver moonlight filtered through gauze curtains, painting everything in shades of pearl and shadow. A canopy bed draped in white silk, a vanity with a tarnished mirror, books stacked on a window seat, their spines cracked with age. Everything covered in dust except Elena's breath caught. The bed was made with fresh linens. Lavender sprigs lay on the pillow. A clean dress hung from the wardrobe door, simple but well made. She turned to Cassian, questions blazing in her eyes. He wouldn't meet her gaze. I heard you coming, he admitted, voice low. Every morning for 100 days, I heard your footsteps on the path, your heartbeat as you climbed the stairs, the soft sound you make when you set down the bread, like a prayer without words. His jaw tightened. On day 99, I began to prepare for this. You knew I would need sanctuary? I knew men like Garrett exist in every generation. Now he looked at her, and the weight of centuries pressed behind those silver eyes. I knew eventually, kindness would need defending, and I have spent 400 years learning that the only thing more dangerous than a monster is a man who thinks he's righteous. 400 years. The number hung between them like smoke. Elena moved to the window, needing distance from the intensity of his presence. Below, the forest spread dark and endless. The village lights were distant stars, warm and impossibly far away. Her home, her father, probably waking now to find her bed empty, the morning bread unstarted. Her hands moved of their own accord. He'll worry. Your father? Cassian's reflection appeared in the window glass behind her, translucent as mist. The baker with the kind eyes who taught you to measure flour by touch? She spun to face him, shocked. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I told you I heard everything. Sometimes I would stand at the window and watch. You walk home, flower in your hair, humming songs no one else could hear. The smile faded. I'm sorry. It was an invasion. But you were the only living thing that acknowledged this place as anything but cursed. I couldn't help but... Listen. The confession settled between them. Intimate and strange. Elena should have felt violated. Instead, she felt seen in a way she'd never experienced truly seen. Silence and all. Why didn't you ever answer? She signed slowly, knowing he might not understand. But Cassian's eyes tracked her hands with that predatory focus. Because monsters don't get to keep kind things, he said simply. We only ruin them. A knock shattered the moment not on the manor door, but somewhere deeper in the house. 3 deliberate strikes, then silence. Cassian's entire body went rigid. Impossible. The knocking came again, closer, growing louder. No one can enter without invitation, he breathed, and for the first time, Elena heard fear in his voice. No one. The door to the silver room exploded inward. A woman stood in the doorway, beautiful and terrible, her hair like spilled wine and her smile full of knives. She wore crimson velvet that matched her lips, and her eyes were the same silver as Cassian's but colder, crueler. Hello, brother, she purred. Did you think I wouldn't notice when you finally took an interest in something living? Her gaze slid to Elena like oil over water. How quaint. A mute little mouse. Really, Cassian, your taste has deteriorated. Cassian moved between them faster than Elena could track. A wall of controlled violence. Vivienne, you're not welcome here. Oh, but I am. Vivienne's laugh was silver bells mixed with breaking glass. Sweet mortal girl. Did he not explain? He invited me in decades ago, before our disagreement. Family, you understand. One never expects them to become enemies. She circled them both, her movements liquid and wrong. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. This was different from Cassian. This was hunger without restraint, cruelty that had never learned mercy. You've been leaving bread for my brother, Vivienne continued, addressing Elena directly now. How precious. Feeding the beast that killed 17 villagers in 1823. Did he tell you that story? About the hunger that overtook him. How he drained an entire wedding party because he was too weak to stop. Enough. Cassian's voice cracked like a whip. Or shall we discuss why he really lives in isolation? Vivienne leaned close to Elena, her breath cold against Elena's ear. He's dangerous, little mouse. Not because he wants to be, because he can't help it. The beast is always there, scratching at his control. And you. She inhaled deeply, savoring something Elena couldn't sense. You smell like sunlight and yeast and innocence. You smell like everything he's denied himself for a century. Elena's hands were shaking, but she forced them steady. Signed, leave. Vivienne blinked, then laughed, genuine surprise coloring her mirth. Oh, she has teeth after all. How delightful. Her attention snapped back to Cassian. I came to warn you, brother. The Covenant has heard rumors of the Ashford girl. They're curious why a vampire lord would allow a mortal to approach his stronghold repeatedly. They're sending someone to investigate. The temperature in the room dropped. Cassian's face had gone completely blank, the expression of a predator calculating odds. When? 3 days, maybe less. Vivienne examined her nails, bored now. I'd suggest you kill her quickly. Drain her, stage an accident, return the body to the village with a tragic story. It's the only way to prove she means nothing to you. Get out. Vivienne smiled, slow and satisfied. As you wish. But Cassian? She paused at the doorway. You can't save her. You never could save anyone. Remember Marguerite? She vanished like smoke, leaving only the scent of roses and rot. Silence crashed down. Elena couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the roaring in her ears. 17 villagers, a wedding party, names for the monster that had held her hand so gently. Cassian still hadn't moved, his back to her. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. Go home, Elena, while you still can. But Elena's hands were already moving, sharp and decisive. No, he turned, and she saw raw anguish in those ancient eyes. You don't understand. I understand enough. Her signs were fierce, almost angry. You could have let them take me. You didn't. That doesn't make me good. It makes you better than them. Something broke in his expression. He looked away, shoulders bowing under invisible weight. 3 days, he whispered. I have 3 days to find a way to keep you alive without destroying you myself. Outside, storm clouds gathered, turning the afternoon to premature dusk. And in the silver room, Elena made a choice that would define everything to come. She reached out and took the vampire's cold hand in hers. Then we have 3 days to find another way. Night fell like a curtain dropping, sudden and absolute. Elena watched from the silver room's window as the last trace of amber bled from the sky, leaving only stars in the cold eye of the moon. Cassian had disappeared after Vivienne's departure, muttering something about securing the manor's wards. Elena remained where he'd left her, sitting on the edge of the pristine bed, her mind churning through impossible truths. 17 villagers, a wedding party. The words circled like carrion birds. She should be terrified, should be planning escape. Instead, she kept remembering the gentleness in his touch, the way he'd prepared this room with lavender and fresh linens for a girl who'd only ever left bread at his door. Monsters didn't do that, did they? A soft knock drew her attention. Not demanding like Vivienne's assault, tentative, almost human. May I enter? Cassian's voice filtered through the wood. This is your sanctuary now. I won't intrude without permission. Elena crossed to the door, opened it herself. He stood in the corridor, bathed in candlelight, and she realized he'd changed clothes. Still black, but simpler, a linen shirt unlaced at the throat, revealing the pale column of his neck. More man than monument now, though no less beautiful for it. I thought you might be hungry, he said, gesturing to the tray in his hands. Her bread from this morning alongside cheese, dried fruit, and wine so dark it looked like liquid midnight. I don't keep much human food, but these were preserved. They should still be good. He set the tray on the small table by the window, movements precise and careful, as if she were something fragile that might shatter. Elena approached slowly, studying his profile. In the moonlight, he looked almost vulnerable, almost alive. She picked up the bread, tore it in half, and offered him a piece. Cassian stared at her outstretched hand. I can't, his voice caught. Elena, I don't eat food. Haven't in 4 centuries. She thrust the bread closer, insistent. You want me to. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by something that might have been grief. You want to break bread with me. Share a meal like humans do. She nodded firmly. His hand trembled, the first truly human gesture she'd seen from him as he took the offered half. He held it like a relic, something holy and forbidden. It will taste like ash to me, he warned. Then we'll taste ash together, her expression said. They ate in silence. Elena watched him force each bite down, saw the way his jaw worked as if swallowing glass, but he finished every crumb, his eyes never leaving hers. When the bread was gone, Cassian leaned back in his chair, exhaustion written across his perfect features. "You should ask me," he said quietly. "About 1,823. About what Vivian said." Elena's hands moved. "Tell me what you want to tell me." "That's dangerous. I could lie." "Will, you?" "No." The word was immediate, almost reverent. "I find I can't lie to you. Don't know why. Maybe because you've never lied to me you can't, with no voice to shape deception." He rubbed his face, a gesture so human it made her chest ache. "The wedding party. It's true. All of it." Silence stretched between them like a wound. "I was weaker then," Cassian continued, voice hollow. "I'd been starving myself for months, trying to prove I could master the hunger. I thought willpower alone would be enough. I was wrong." His hands clenched on the table. "I heard the music from the church, smelled them all that life, all that joy. I told myself I'd only take a little, just enough to quiet the beast." Elena didn't move, barely breathed. But there's no such thing as a little when you're that far gone. One taste became two. Two became... He closed his eyes. "I came to covered in blood that wasn't mine, surrounded by bodies. 17 people who'd been celebrating love. Dead because I thought I could be something I'm not." "What are you?" Elena signed. "A killer with pretensions of nobility." Bitterness dripped from every word. "After that night, I swore I'd never feed from an innocent again. I hunt those who deserve death, murderers, rapists, men like Garrett who hurt for pleasure. I take just enough to survive. Some months, that means going hungry, but I never lose control like that again." He opened his eyes, and Elena saw centuries of self-loathing burning there. That's why Vivian laughed. Because she knows isolation doesn't equal redemption. Knows that every night, I still want to hunt, still feel the hunger scratching at my ribs. I'm not better than I was, Elena. I'm just better at hiding it. Elena stood slowly, her decision crystallizing into certainty. She moved around the table until she stood before him, close enough to feel the unnatural cold radiating from his skin. Her hands moved deliberately. "Show me." Cassian's head snapped up. "What?" She touched her throat, then pointed to him. The gesture was unmistakable. "No." He was on his feet instantly, backing away. "Elena, you don't understand what you're asking." She pursued him, backing him against the wall with nothing but determination. Her hands flew. "You said blood binds truth. I want to understand. Want to know what you are beyond words. It's not just understanding, it's intimate. It's dangerous." His voice had gone rough, and Elena realized with shock that she could hear his heartbeat now, faster than before. He had a heartbeat. "If I start, I might not be able to stop." The hunger doesn't care about noble intentions. Elena pressed her palm flat against his chest, feeling the slow, reluctant rhythm beneath. Then she placed his hand against her own heart, letting him feel the wild gallop of fear and trust intertwined. "I trust you," she signed with her free hand. "You shouldn't." But his fingers had curled into the fabric of her dress, holding on like a drowning man. "Elena, please, don't ask this of me." She met his silver gaze steadily, then tilted her head, exposing the pale line of her throat. Cassian made a sound between a growl and a sob. "You're going to destroy me, little baker." His hands came up to frame her face, cold and gentle and trembling. He leaned close, his breath ghosting across her skin, and she realized he was breathing, pulling in her scent like a prayer. "If I hurt you," he whispered against her throat. "If I take too much, you fight me. Promise me you'll fight." Elena's hand found his, squeezed once. "Promise." His lips brushed her pulse point, soft as a question. Then, the sharp sting of fangs. Elena gasped, her fingers digging into his shoulders. Not from pain, though there was pain, but from the sudden rush of sensation, like falling and flying simultaneously, like every nerve in her body had caught fire. She felt him, felt 400 years of loneliness crash against her mind like waves. Tasted memories, not her own, a sister's laughter, the sun on human skin, the suffocating weight of immortality's curse, and underneath it all, hunger, vast and terrible and barely leashed, held back only by iron will and centuries of practice, but also wonder, at the taste of her, the warmth of her blood, the impossible fact that she'd chosen this freely. "You're not a monster," she thought desperately, not knowing if he could hear. You're just tired. So tired. Cassian pulled back with a sharp gasp, his fangs retracting. Her blood stained his lips. He stared at her with wide, shocked eyes. I felt your thoughts, heard them. His voice was raw. That's not possible. Blood memories only flow one way. From feeder to... He stopped, his expression transforming into something between horror and awe. Unless, he breathed, unless you're not entirely human. The room tilted. Elena grabbed the wall for support, suddenly dizzy. Her throat throbbed where he'd bitten, but already she could feel the wound closing, knitting itself together with impossible speed. The Ashford line, Cassian whispered. Your mother, Elena, what did she tell you about your family's history? Elena's hands shook too badly to sign. She could only stare as Cassian began to pace, energy crackling around him like a storm. The Covenant is coming because they know, he said urgently. They know what you are, what you could become. That's why Vivienne warned me not out of kindness, but because she wants to watch me face an impossible choice. What choice? Between saving you, Cassian said, his silver eyes burning into hers, and saving the world from what you might become if your blood awakens fully. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The candles flickered, and somewhere in Thornhaven Manor's depths, something ancient stirred. Elena's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the bed, her mind reeling through fragmented memories, her mother's trembling hands teaching her the bread ritual, the way strangers sometimes crossed themselves when she passed, the fever that had taken her voice at age 7 but left her alive when the physician swore she'd die. Cassian knelt before her, his earlier distance forgotten. Breathe, he commanded softly. Elena, look at me. Breathe. She forced air into her lungs, forced her hands to steady enough to sign. What am I? I'm not certain, but I have suspicions. He stood, began pacing again. The Ashford name appears in vampire histories, always in footnotes, always dismissed as legend. They were said to be mediators, humans born with blood that could bridge the gap between mortal and immortal. Some texts call them Dhampir, others simply blessed. My mother never. She wouldn't have told you. Probably didn't fully understand herself. Cassian's voice was urgent now, pieces clicking together. But she knew enough to teach you the old ways. The bread ritual, the threshold offering, those aren't village superstitions, Elena. They're protective rites, from when humans and vampires coexisted under the Covenant's law. The Covenant, Elena signed. What are they? The oldest vampire houses, bound by oath to maintain balance. They ensure our kind doesn't overbreed, doesn't expose ourselves, doesn't... He stopped before her again. Doesn't create Dhampir. It's been forbidden for 300 years. Too dangerous, too unpredictable. The implications crashed over her. You think I'm one of these Dhampir. Your blood sang to me, Elena. Not just as food, as recognition. And when I fed, the connection went both ways. That's impossible with purely human blood. His hand hovered near her face, not quite touching. The rapid healing, the way your silence might be a gift rather than a curse, the fact that you could approach my threshold day after day without falling ill, all signs point to dormant Dhampir blood. Dormant? Not awakened. Not yet. His expression darkened. But vampire venom acts as a catalyst. The feeding we just shared might have begun the transformation. If it has, a crash echoed through the manor, followed by the sound of splintering wood. Cassian's head whipped toward the door, his body going predator still. They're here, he breathed. Impossible. Vivienne said 3 days. She lied, brother. Vivienne's voice drifted through the corridor, accompanied by footsteps, multiple sets, measured and deliberate. Did you really think I came to warn you? I came to collect. The Covenant's already here. Cassian moved to the door, his body blocking Elena from whatever approached. Stay behind me. Whatever happens, don't run. Running triggers their hunting instinct. 3 figures materialized in the doorway, 2 men flanking a woman who wore authority like a second skin. She was ancient Elena, could feel it radiating from her like heat from a forge. Her hair was white as bone, her eyes black from edge to edge, no pupil or iris distinguishable. She wore gray robes that whispered across the floor. Lord Cassian Thornwood. Her voice was dust and silk. You stand accused of trafficking with a potential Dhampir. Step aside. No. The woman's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Your isolation has made you forget your place. I am Magistrate Sienna of the Covenant. You will obey, or you will be destroyed along with the abomination. She's not an abomination. Cassian's voice was steel. She's done nothing wrong. She exists. Sienna glided into the room, her guards moving with synchronized precision. That alone violates our most sacred law. Dhampir are bridges between worlds, Lord Cassian. They can walk in sunlight, feed on both blood and food, and worst of all, they can sire. Do you understand what that means? A being that can create vampires without the Covenant's sanction? Elena's hands moved before she could stop herself. I didn't ask for this. All three visitors froze. Sienna's black eyes fixed on Elena with terrible focus. It speaks in the silent tongue. How apt. She approached, and Cassian shifted to intercept. Sienna's hand moved faster than sight, catching his throat and slamming him against the wall with inhuman strength. Do not test me, Thornwood. Your nobility means nothing here. Elena was moving before thought caught up, throwing herself between them, her hands splayed against Sienna's chest in a gesture that was half plea, half defiance. Power exploded through the room. Light pure and silver erupted from Elena's palms. Sienna stumbled backward with a hiss, smoke rising from where Elena's hands had touched her. The two guards lunged forward, but Cassian was already there, a blur of violence that sent them crashing into furniture. Elena stared at her hands, at the fading luminescence beneath her skin. She could feel something uncurling inside her, like a flower blooming in fast forward. Heat where there should be cold. Strength in muscles that had never known power. Awakened, Sienna breathed, her composure cracked, for the first time. Fully awakened from a single feeding. Impossible. It should take months, years. Unless the bond is true, Vivienne said from the doorway, her expression stunned. Unless feeder and catalyst are perfectly matched. Oh, Cassian, what have you done? Cassian stood between Elena and the Covenant members, his hands raised, ready to fight or plead. Elena couldn't tell which. She didn't choose this. I didn't know what she was. You can't punish her for being born. We don't punish, Lord Cassian. We preserve. Sienna had regained her composure, though she kept her distance from Elena now. The girl comes with us. She'll be contained, studied. If she proves controllable, she may be allowed to live under strict supervision. If not, no. Elena's hands cut through the air with vicious finality. She stepped forward, felt the strange new power thrumming through her veins. I will not be a prisoner. You have no choice, child. There is always a choice. Elena's signs were sharp, angry. She turned to Cassian, saw the anguish written across his face. You said you hunt those who deserve death. Who decides who deserves it? The Covenant, he answered quietly. They maintain the balance. Without them, vampires would overrun the world. And who protects mortals from the Covenant? Silence fell like a blade. Even Sienna seemed taken aback by the question. Clever girl, Vivienne murmured. She sees the flaw in your perfect system, Magistrate. Who watches the watchers? Sienna's expression hardened. This debate is pointless. The law is clear. She comes with us, or we raise this manor with both of you inside it. Cassian's hand found Elena's, his grip desperate. She could feel him trembling with rage or fear. She couldn't tell. There is one alternative, Vivienne said slowly, her eyes gleaming with dangerous amusement. Ancient law rarely invoked. Trial by ordeal. Absolutely not, Cassian snapped. What is it? Sienna asked, interest sharpening her. Features. The accused faces 3 challenges set by the Covenant. Survive all 3, and she earns her freedom full recognition as neither human nor vampire, but something new. Something protected under the old accords. Vivienne's smile was all teeth. Of course, no Dhampir has ever survived the trials. Most die in the first, but it's her choice, isn't it? All eyes turned to Elena. Her heart hammered against her ribs. 3 trials designed to kill her, or imprisonment, study, execution, or let Cassian die defending her. She thought of her mother's trembling hands, of 100 mornings climbing a hill to feed something everyone else feared, of Cassian's gentle touch and centuries of loneliness. Her hands moved with absolute certainty. I accept the trials. Elena? No. She squeezed his hand, cutting off his protest, met his silver eyes with her own steady gaze. Together. You said we'd find another way. This is it. She accepts, Vivienne announced, clapping her hands together. with theatrical delight. How marvelous! It's been 70 years since the last trial. This should be entertaining. Sienna studied Elena for a long moment, those black eyes unreadable. Finally, she nodded. Very well, the first trial begins at dawn. Prepare yourself, child. She turned to leave, her guards falling into formation. And Lord Cassian, if she fails, you will watch her die. Then you will be judged for the role you played in her awakening. Choose your next moves carefully. They vanished like smoke, leaving only the scent of old graves behind. The moment they were gone, Cassian pulled Elena into his arms, his face buried in her hair. She felt wetness against her temple tears, impossible tears from something that shouldn't be able to cry. I can't lose you, he whispered. Not now, not when I've just found. He stopped, but Elena understood what he couldn't say. Outside, the stars wheeled toward morning, carrying with them whatever death the Covenant had designed. Dawn broke bloody and cold. Elena stood in Thornhaven's courtyard, frost crunching beneath her boots. She'd refused sleep, spent the night with Cassian in the library, poring over ancient texts about Dhampir trials. Most accounts ended the same way. The accused did not survive. Cassian stood beside her now, close enough that his coat brushed her arm. He hadn't touched her since his moment of weakness, had retreated behind walls of formality that hurt worse than distance. You don't have to do this, he said for the 100th time. We could run. I know places even the Covenant can't reach. Elena's hands moved sharply. They'd follow. They'd burn villages searching. You know they would. His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. They both knew she was right. Sienna materialized at the courtyard's center as the sun crested the trees and Elena gasped. The magistrate stood in full daylight, smoke rising from her exposed skin, her face a mask of controlled agony. Behind her, the two guards, cowered in the manor's shadow. The first trial, Sienna announced, her voice steady despite the smell of burning flesh, is sunlight. You claim Dhampir blood, girl? Prove it. Stand with me in the day's embrace. Survive until the sun reaches its zenith. 3 hours. Elena's stomach dropped. 3 hours in direct sunlight with a vampire burning alive beside her. And if she succeeds? Cassian demanded. Then she demonstrates the first gift of the bridge-born tolerance for the sun's judgment. Sienna's lips pulled back, revealing fangs. But know this, child. I am 5,000 years old. My pain tolerance has been honed across millennia. Can you say the same? Elena stepped forward before courage could fail her. She moved into the light, felt warmth kiss her skin, then searing heat, like stepping too close to a forge. Pain exploded through her body. She bit her tongue to keep from screaming, tasted copper. Her skin didn't smoke like Sienna's, but it burned, every nerve shrieking. Protest. The new power in her veins writhed, trying to retreat from the sun's assault. Interesting, Sienna observed, seemingly unbothered by the flames now licking at her robes. You feel it more than a full vampire, but less than a human would, precisely in between. How fitting. Minutes crawled past like hours. Elena's vision swam. She focused on Cassian's face, on the anguish written there, used it as an anchor against the pain. Not a monster, she thought desperately. You're not a monster, and I'm not an abomination. We're just trying to rewrite the rules? Sienna's voice cut through the haze. Noble, futile. The Covenant has maintained order for 10,000 years. You think your little love story changes anything? Love. The word jolted through Elena like lightning. Was that what this was? This desperate need to prove herself worthy of standing beside something ancient and deadly? This willingness to burn just to show him he wasn't alone? Her knees buckled. She caught herself, but barely. The sun climbed higher, merciless. Elena, Cassian's voice, raw with panic. She heard him move, knew he was about to do something stupid like step into the light himself. No, she signed frantically, not even knowing if he could see through her tears. Stay. I can't watch this. You will. Vivienne's voice, cruel and amused. She'd appeared beside Cassian, her hand on his shoulder pinning him in place with inhuman strength. Those are the rules, brother. The accused suffers alone. Elena's legs gave out. She crashed to her knees on the frost-covered stones, agony radiating through every cell. But she kept her head up, kept her eyes open. If she was going to die here, she'd do it looking at him, looking at the man the vampire who'd prepared a room with lavender for a girl who left bread at his door. Sienna had stopped burning. Elena realized with shock that the magistrate had somehow adapted, her ancient body finding equilibrium with the sun's assault. She stood wreathed in smoke but no longer aflame, watching Elena with those depthless black eyes. "Most collapse within the first hour," she said. "You've lasted 90 minutes. Impressive. But you're fading, child. I can smell your blood cooking beneath your skin." It was true. Elena could feel something fundamental breaking inside her. Some barrier between human and other crumbling under the sun's relentless pressure. Her heartbeat stuttered, skipped, found a new rhythm, slower, stronger, wrong. "She's changing," Cassian breathed. "Vivienne, the sun is accelerating the transformation. She's burning away the human parts." "Is that not the point?" Vivienne sounded genuinely curious. "To prove she's Dhampir, she must survive what would kill a human. The trial itself forces the awakening. She'll die before it completes. Then she was never meant to survive." Elena's hands moved without conscious thought, signing words her mother had taught her prayers in the old language, before Latin, before even the Covenant's founding. Words that tasted like smoke and honey on her tongue that couldn't speak them. Light erupted from her palms again, but different this time. Not silver, gold, warm and welcoming, wrapping around her like armor. The pain didn't stop, but it became bearable, transformed into something almost like strength. She climbed to her feet. Sienna's expression shifted surprise, then something that might have been respect. The old words. "Your mother taught you well, Elena Ashford. She knew what you were, even if she couldn't speak it aloud." The sun reached its zenith. Elena stood bathed in golden light, her own power pulsing in rhythm with her transformed heartbeat. She felt different, lighter, stronger, more, as if her body had finally remembered what it was always meant to be. "The first trial is complete," Sienna announced. She stepped back into shadow, her smoking form already beginning to heal. "You have proven solar tolerance, but no, this child, the trials only grow harder, and the second will test not your body, but your heart." She vanished, leaving Elena swaying in the sudden absence of her presence. Cassian was there instantly, catching her before she fell. His hands ran over her face, her arms, checking for damage. "Your skin, it's glowing, like you've captured sunlight beneath it." Elena looked down. He was right. A faint luminescence pulsed beneath her flesh, warm and alive. She touched his face, saw wonder in his silver eyes. "I can touch you in daylight now," she signed, "without you burning." "Elena." His voice broke. He pressed his forehead to hers, his breath unnecessary but given anyway, a ghost of human habit. "You magnificent, terrifying, impossible creature. What are you becoming?" "Something new," she signed. Then, more honestly, "something that can stand beside you." "The second trial." Vivienne's voice shattered the moment. She regarded them both with an expression Elena couldn't read: hunger, jealousy, fascination, all warring beneath her perfect features. "It begins at moonrise." Sienna didn't explain it, "but I know what it will be." "Tell me," Cassian demanded. "The trial of choice." Vivienne's smile was acid. "They'll make her choose between her humanity and her power, between the life she knew and the life she's becoming. Between..." Her eyes glinted. "Between you and her father." The words landed like a blade between Elena's ribs. "They'll bring the baker here," Vivienne continued softly. "They'll tell him what his daughter is becoming, and they'll ask Elena to choose complete the transformation and lose him forever, or reject her Dhampir blood and return to mortality, knowing of course that mortality means she'll be executed for the crime of awakening in the first place." "That's not a choice," Cassian snarled. "That's torture. That's the Covenant." Vivienne turned to leave, paused. "For what it's worth, brother, I hope she surprises us all." She disappeared into the manor's shadows. Elena stood in Cassian's arms, the golden light beneath her skin already beginning to fade. She thought of her father, kind, gentle, teaching her to knead bread with patience and love, the only family she had left. And she thought of Cassian's lonely centuries, of the way he'd looked at her with wonder when her blood sang to his. "I don't want to choose," she signed, and for the first time since this began, she felt truly afraid. "Then we'll find another way." Cassian's voice was fierce, but his eyes betrayed his doubt. "Before moonrise. We have hours yet." But they both knew hours wouldn't be enough. Some choices couldn't be escaped, only survived. The hours before moonrise passed in agonizing slowness. Elena sat in the library, her father's worn recipe book open on her lap, the one he'd given her mother, the one that had passed to Elena when fever and grief claimed the woman who'd taught her to measure love in flour and yeast. Cassian paced before the fire, silent and deadly as a caged wolf. Every few minutes he'd stop, open his mouth to speak, then resume his restless prowling. The air between them hummed with everything unsaid. Finally, Elena couldn't bear it anymore. Her hands moved. "Tell me about Marguerite." He froze mid-stride. "How do you—" Then quieter. "Vivienne. Of course." "Who was she?" Cassian collapsed into the chair across from Elena, suddenly looking every one of his 400 years. "My wife. Human, I thought." His laugh was bitter. "I thought love would be enough to protect her from what I was. I was young then, only 50 years turned, still believed in fairy tales." Elena waited, hands still. "The covenant came, just like they've come for you. Offered her the same choice, transformation or death. She chose transformation. Begged me to complete it, to turn her fully so we could have eternity together." His hands clenched on the chair arms. "I refused. Told her I wouldn't condemn her to this existence. Wouldn't make her a monster like me. What happened? They killed her anyway. Said she knew too much, had seen too much. The choice was always an illusion." His silver eyes met hers, haunted. "I've spent 300 years wondering if I'd said yes, if I'd been brave enough to transform her, whether she'd still be—" The window shattered. Cassian moved like lightning, shielding Elena as glass rained down. A figure stood in the frame, not Sienna, but one of her guards, his face impassive. "The second trial begins," he announced. "The accused will come to the courtyard. Alone. I'm coming with her," Cassian said flatly. "You are not invited, Lord Cassian. Only witnesses to her choice." The guard's eyes flickered to Elena. "Your father awaits." The world tilted. Elena's hands shook too badly to sign. Cassian gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Listen to me. Whatever they say, whatever they threaten, you don't have to choose anything you don't want. We'll fight them. All of them if necessary. You'll die. Then I'll die knowing I didn't make Marguerite's mistake again. I won't choose for you, Elena. Whatever you decide, I'll stand with it, even if it means losing you." The unspoken words hung between them like smoke. Elena stood, legs steadier than she expected. The golden light still pulsed faintly beneath her skin, a reminder of what she was becoming. She touched Cassian's face once, let her fingers trace the sharp line of his jaw. Then she followed the guard into the dying light. The courtyard had transformed. Torches burned in a circle, their light casting dancing shadows. Sienna stood at the center, and beside her, Papa. Elena breathed no sound, only the shape of the word on her lips. Marcus Ashford looked smaller than she remembered, his baker's shoulders bowed with confusion and fear. His kind eyes widened when he saw her, relief and terror warring across his weathered face. "Elena. Thank God. I thought when you didn't come home, when the blacksmith's son said you'd gone to the vampire's manor." He moved toward her, but Sienna's hand rose, stopping him mid-step. "No touching," the magistrate commanded. "Not until the choice is made." "What choice? What's happening?" Marcus looked between them, lost. "Please, I just want my daughter back." Elena's heart cracked. She could see it in his eyes. He knew something had changed, could sense she wasn't entirely the girl who'd left bread at dawn yesterday. But he didn't understand. Couldn't. "Your daughter is becoming something other than human," Sienna explained with clinical precision. "The transformation has begun. She has two paths before her. 1. Complete the change. Embrace her Dhampir nature fully. She will gain power, longevity, abilities beyond mortal ken. But she will no longer be your child. She'll outlive you by centuries, watch you age and die while she remains unchanged. The bond between you will wither, as all mortal bonds do when immortality enters." Marcus staggered. "No, Elena, no. Or," Sienna continued, "she can reject the transformation. I will use ancient arts to burn away the awakening, restore her to full humanity. She'll return home with you, live a normal life, marry, have children, grow old." "That's the trap," Vivienne called from the shadows. She leaned against the manor wall, arms crossed. "Reject the transformation, and the covenant still executes her for the crime of awakening. They just don't tell dear Papa that part." Marcus's face went white. Execute? She's done nothing wrong. She exists as an abomination, Sienna said without inflection. The law is absolute. Then it's no choice at all. Marcus's voice broke. You're asking her to lose me or die? I'm asking her, Sienna replied, to show us what she values more. Her humanity represented by you, the last tie to her mortal life, or her power and the vampire lord who awakened it. Cassian appeared at the courtyard's edge, held back by 2 more guards. His face was anguished. Elena stood between her father and the magistrate, between the life she'd known and the impossibility she was becoming. The golden light beneath her skin pulsed stronger, responding to her racing heart. There's always a choice, she'd told Cassian. Now her own words mocked her. Choose, Sienna commanded, before the moon reaches its peak. Or I'll choose for you, and neither option will please you. Marcus took a shaking step forward. Baby girl, look at me. He waited until Elena's eyes met his. I don't understand what's happening. Don't understand what you're becoming. But I know you. Know your heart. Tears tracked down his weathered cheeks. Whatever you choose, I'll love you. Even if I don't get to see the woman you become. Elena's composure shattered. She signed frantically. Papa, I can't. You can. His smile was heartbreak made visible. You're stronger than you know. Always have been. From the moment that fever should have killed you, but didn't. You survived, Elena. You'll survive this too. Understanding crashed through her. The fever when she was 7. The one that stole her voice but left her alive against all odds. It hadn't been chance. You knew. She signed to her father. You knew what I was. Marcus's expression confirmed it. Your mother told me before she died. Made me promise to protect you. To teach you the old ways without explaining why. Said one day you'd need them. His voice dropped to a whisper. She was Dhampir too, Elena. Dormant, like you were. She never awakened fully. But she knew. Always knew. The world reformed around that revelation. Her mother's trembling hands. The bread ritual. The way she'd looked at Elena sometimes with fear and hope intertwined. Choose transformation, Marcus said firmly. Live. Become whatever you need to become. And know that I'll die proud of the extraordinary creature my daughter became. No, Cassian's voice rang out. Elena, don't listen. She needs to. Survive, Marcus shouted back. Isn't that what you want, vampire? For her to live? Not like this. Not by destroying her humanity. I've seen what that cost does. Then you're a fool, Marcus snapped. She's already more than human. Has been since birth. You're just asking her to keep pretending, and it'll kill her. Elena looked between them, her father, offering her freedom at the cost of their remaining time together. Cassian, willing to fight the world to preserve the parts of her that were still mortal. And Sienna, watching with those ancient black eyes, waiting for Elena to break. The moon climbed higher. Minutes remained. Elena's hands moved slowly, deliberately. Not to her father. Not to Cassian. To Sienna herself. I choose, she signed. Neither. Sienna's eyebrows rose. Explain. Elena stepped forward into the torchlight. The golden luminescence beneath her skin blazed brighter, and she finally understood what it was. Not vampire power, not human weakness. Something entirely new. I choose to be Dhampir, she signed. Not half of anything. Whole, complete. I don't reject my humanity, I expand it. And I don't accept your execution. I reject your authority to judge what I am. Bold words for a girl with no power. Elena smiled the first real smile since this began. Then she raised her hands, and light poured from her palms. Not silver like before. Pure gold, warm as bread from the oven, bright as the sun she'd survived. The light touched her father. Marcus gasped, but not in pain. In wonder, the years seemed to fall from his face, his hands steadying, his eyes clearing. Dhampir don't just bridge life and death, Vivienne breathed. They bridge mortal and eternal. She's healing him. Elena's hands moved again. I choose both. Love and power, mortality and strength. I am the bridge, and I will not be broken. The light exploded outward, filling the courtyard with dawn. The light faded slowly, like sunset in reverse. Elena swayed, exhaustion crashing through her. The power had drained something essential, left her hollow and trembling. but her father stood taller than he had in years, his breathing easier, the perpetual ache in his joints visibly lifted. Sienna's expression had shifted from bored authority to calculating interest. Unprecedented. A newly awakened Dhampir, performing vital restoration without training. She circled Elena like a predator evaluating prey. You didn't just heal him. You extended his lifespan. Perhaps decades. Is that... Marcus looked at his hands, flexing fingers that no longer creaked with Baker's arthritis. How is this possible? It shouldn't be. Cassian had broken free from the guards, was at Elena's side in an instant, supporting her weight. Elena, what did you do? That kind of power takes centuries to develop. She's an anchor point. Vivienne's voice held reluctant admiration. A true Bridgeborn, not just someone with diluted blood. The old texts described them as myth, beings who they could channel life force itself, redistribute it, heal the dying, extend mortal years. Even, she paused, eyes widening, even restore what was lost. Every vampire in the courtyard went utterly still. You mean... One of Sienna's guards spoke for the first time, his voice raw with desperate hope. She could give us back the sun, mortality, choice? Theoretically, Sienna's tone had gone cold, which is precisely why such beings are forbidden. Imagine it every vampire seeking out the Bridgeborn, demanding transformation back to human, or humans begging for eternal life without the cost of death. The balance would shatter. Chaos would reign. So you kill them. Marcus's voice shook with fury. You murder children to preserve your precious balance? We maintain order. Sienna's black eyes fixed on Elena. And this child has just proven herself the most dangerous Dhampir born in a millennium. The second trial was meant to break her will. Instead, she's revealed power that makes the Covenant's existence possible obsolescence. The guards moved closer, hands on weapons Elena hadn't noticed before, silver blades that gleamed with oily light. Cassian shifted, placing himself between Elena and the approaching threat. You'll have to go through me. That can be arranged, Lord Cassian. Your protection of an abomination nullifies your nobility. You're as marked for death as she is now. Then we're both dead. His voice was calm, resigned. But we'll take half your forces with us before we fall. Will you? Sienna tilted her head. Or will you watch her die first, knowing you could have prevented it by simply walking away? Elena felt Cassian's body tense, felt the centuries of guilt and loss radiating from him like cold fire. She knew what Sienna was doing, offering him the same choice he'd failed with Marguerite. Die together or live with the knowledge he'd abandoned someone he... No, Elena signed firmly. She stepped out from behind Cassian, legs steadier now. The third trial. I haven't failed yet. There won't be a third trial. Sienna's voice was absolute. You've proven too dangerous to allow. The law says 3 trials. Vivienne spoke from the shadows, stepping into torchlight with a smile that cut like glass. Ancient law, magistrate, the kind even you can't break without consequence. She invoked trial by ordeal. She's passed 2 challenges. Deny her the third, and you violate the compact that gives the Covenant authority in the first place. Sienna's jaw clenched. You play a dangerous game, Vivienne Thornwood. I play the only game that matters, survival. And I'm curious to see if this little Baker can achieve what no Dhampir has before. Vivienne's eyes gleamed. Besides, imagine the precedent. If she survives, truly survives, you'll have proof that Bridgeborn can be controlled, governed, made useful to the Covenant rather than destroyed by it. The logic hung in the air like bait on a hook. What do you propose? Sienna asked slowly. The traditional third trial. Blood bond. Vivienne gestured to Cassian. Let her bond with the vampire who awakened her. If the connection doesn't destroy them both, if they can maintain individual will while sharing power, then she's proven Dhampir can exist without disrupting the balance. She becomes the first sanctioned Bridgeborn in 3 centuries. And if the bond fails, then they both die, their ashes scattered, and your precious balance remains intact. Elena's heart hammered. She looked at Cassian, saw horror and longing warring in his expression. Blood bond, he breathed. Vivienne, that's permanent, irreversible. We'd be tied together for as long as we both exist. Yes. Vivienne's smile widened. Feel each other's pain. Share thoughts. Never be truly alone again. Romantic, isn't it? Unless, of course, the connection is unstable. Then your minds will tear each other apart from the inside. Usually takes about 3 days of screaming before. Death claims you both. Marcus made a strangled sound. Elena, no. There has to be another way. But Elena was watching Cassian, seeing him truly, perhaps for the first time. 400 years of isolation, of pushing away anything that might need him, might remind him of his capacity for destruction. Living in a manner full of preserved memories, leaving himself hollow. Are you afraid? She signed. Terrified, he admitted. Not of dying, of, his voice dropped, of binding you to this existence, of taking away your freedom before you've even learned what your power means. I'm already bound to you. Her hands moved with absolute certainty. Have been since the first loaf of bread. Maybe before. Maybe since the moment I was born. Elena, let me in. She stepped closer, placed her palm over his silent heart. Let me see all of you. The monster you fear. The man you were. The creature you've become. And let me show you what I see when I look at you. Cassian's hand covered hers, trembling. If we do this, if we bond, I'll feel every emotion you have. Every thought. You'll have no privacy. No sanctuary from me. Good. Her smile was fierce. Then you'll finally believe me when I tell you you're not the monster you think you are. Sienna raised her hand. The third trial is accepted. The blood bond will be forged at midnight. Prepare yourselves. She looked between them with something that might have been pity. Most bonded pairs don't survive the first hour. The intimacy is overwhelming. But if you succeed, Elena Ashford will be recognized as the Covenant's first sanctioned Dhampir. She'll have protection, resources, purpose. And me? Cassian asked quietly. You'll be bound to her. Responsible for her actions, her choices. If she destabilizes the balance, you'll both be destroyed. Sienna's expression hardened. And Lord Cassian, if she dies, either in the bonding or after, you won't survive it. The bond ensures that. You'll finally get what you've wanted for 300 years. Death. Or you'll get something rarer. A companion who sees your darkness and chooses you anyway. She vanished with her guards, leaving only Vivienne behind. Why? Cassian demanded of his sister. Why help us? Vivienne's mask of amusement slipped for just a moment. Because I'm tired, brother. Tired of watching you suffer. Tired of this endless game of balance and death. Maybe... She looked at Elena. Maybe she's right. Maybe there's another way. Or maybe you'll both burn, and I'll be proven correct that love is just another word for destruction. She disappeared into shadow. Marcus approached slowly, his restored hands reaching for his daughter. Elena fell into his embrace, breathing in flower and cinnamon and home. Come back to me, he whispered. Whatever you become, wherever this takes you, promise you'll come back. Elena nodded against his chest, unable to sign around him. When they separated, Marcus turned to Cassian. The vampire stiffened, expecting condemnation. Instead, Marcus extended his hand. Take care of her, or I'll find a way to haunt you from whatever afterlife awaits bakers. Cassian stared at the offered hand, then gripped it firmly. I swear it. On whatever remains of my soul. Marcus left, escorted by guards who'd appeared to return him to the village. Alone in the courtyard, Elena and Cassian faced each other across the space where midnight would bring either salvation or obliteration. 3 hours, Cassian said softly. We have 3 hours before the bond. Elena, if you want to run. She closed the distance between them, took his face in her glowing hands, and pulled him down until their foreheads touched. No more running, she signed in the space between them. For either of us. His arms came around her, desperate and gentle, and they stood together, waiting for midnight, waiting to become something the world had never seen, or to burn trying. Midnight arrived on wings of frost. Elena and Cassian stood, in the manor's grand hall, a space that had lain dormant for decades now blazing with candlelight. Sienna had transformed it, the dust cleared, the furniture uncovered, revealing faded grandeur beneath. A circle of salt and silver marked the floor's center, ancient symbols carved into the stone around it. The bonding circle, Sienna explained, her voice echoing through the vaulted space. Once you enter, you cannot leave until the bond completes or you perish. There will be 3 stages. First, the blood exchange. Second, the mental bridge. Third, the soul fusion. Elena's hand found Cassian's, his fingers interlaced with hers, cool and solid. Most fail at stage 2, Sienna continued. The mind cannot withstand such intimacy. Secrets you've buried, pain you've hidden, everything becomes shared. Many go mad from the exposure. How comforting, Cassian muttered. Vivian leaned against a pillar, watching with hooded eyes. Remember, brother once bonded. Her pain is yours. Her death is yours. You'll finally have what you've always claimed to want. An end. Unless, of course, she's stronger than you give her credit for. Cassian's grip on Elena's hand tightened. She squeezed back, then stepped into the circle. He followed without hesitation. The moment they crossed the salt line, the air changed thicker, charged with power that raised every hair on Elena's arms. The candles flared brighter, their flames dancing without wind. Kneel facing each other, Sienna commanded. They obeyed. Elena's knees touched cold stone. Cassian knelt before her, close enough that she could see flecks of darker silver in his eyes, like starlight through smoke. The exchange begins with truth. Sienna's voice had taken on a ritual cadence. Vampire, state your intention. Cassian's throat worked. I bind myself to Elena Ashford, knowing she is Dampier, knowing she carries light I can never possess. I offer my darkness, my strength, my eternity such as it is. I offer protection, companionship, and... His voice dropped to a whisper. Love if she'll have it. Elena's breath caught. Cassian's eyes held hers, vulnerable and terrified. Dampier, state your intention. Elena's hands moved through the charged air. I bind myself to Cassian Thornwood, knowing he is vampire, knowing he carries night I've never known. I offer my light, my healing, my humanity such as it is. I offer trust, understanding, and love. Her hands faltered. Then, more firmly, love, freely given, then let blood seal what words have spoken. Sienna produced a silver dagger, its blade etched with symbols that hurt to look at. She approached Cassian first, drew the blade across his palm. Black blood welled up, thick and strange. Then she cut Elena's palm. Red blood, bright as rubies, mixed with golden light that pulsed beneath her skin. Join hands, let the blood mingle. Elena pressed her bleeding palm to Cassian's. The moment their blood touched, the world exploded. Memories not her own, flooded through Elena's mind. A young man in Renaissance clothing, laughing in sunlight, wine on his lips and a girl in his arms. That same man screaming, burning, dying as vampire venom rewrote his humanity. Centuries of hunger, of learning to kill, of becoming the monster he'd sworn he'd never be. Marguerite's face, beautiful and desperate, begging for transformation. Her body, broken on the courtyard stones, Sienna standing over it with blood on her hands, 300 years of isolation. Of hearing Elena's footsteps on the path and wanting so desperately to open the door but being too afraid. Day 99. Standing at the window with his hand on the doorknob, trembling with the need to finally speak to the girl who'd shown him kindness he didn't deserve. Elena gasped, drowning in his pain, his loneliness, his self-hatred so vast it had its own gravity. But she didn't pull away. Instead, she pushed back, sending her own memories flowing through the connection. Her mother's trembling hands teaching her to knead bread, whispering, "You're special, Elena. Never forget special, not broken." The fever that stole her voice. The moment of silence when everyone thought she'd died. Then the golden light that had pulsed through her small body, calling her back. Years of being called freak, demon child, cursed, finding her mother's body, cold and still, and understanding she was truly alone. The first loaf of bread she'd left at Thornhaven's door, terrified and determined, whispering a prayer no one could hear. 100 mornings climbing that hill, each time hoping for something. Connection. Proof she wasn't as alone as she felt. Seeing Cassian for the first time and recognizing something in his eyes that mirrored her own loneliness. Their memories tangled, wove together, became indistinguishable from each other. Elena felt his hunger as if it were her own, felt the weight of centuries pressing down, the constant battle between beast and man. And Cassian felt her silence not as absence but as presence. Felt her mother's love and loss. Felt the golden light that had always lived inside her, waiting to be called. Stage 2. Sienna's voice came from very far away. The mental bridge. They're merging. Elena couldn't tell where she ended and Cassian began. His thoughts became hers. So bright. She's so bright it hurts. How can she want this, want me, when she can see everything I've done? And her thoughts flowed to him. So alone. He's been alone for so long. How can he think he's just a monster when I can feel his heart breaking for every life he's taken? She's crying. Why is she crying for me? He's worth saving, worth fighting for. Why can't he see? The connection deepened, grew stronger. Elena felt Cassian's presence settle inside her mind like a second heartbeat, foreign but right. She could sense his emotions now, the terror, the wonder, the desperate hope he was trying to suppress. And he could feel hers, the determination, the compassion that had driven her up that hill every morning, the love that had been growing since the moment he'd offered her sanctuary. Stage 3. Sienna's voice was sharp with surprise. Impossible. They're stable. The bond is holding. The final stage rushed through them like a tidal wave. Soul fusion. The deepest level of bonding, where two beings became permanently intertwined. Elena felt something fundamental shift inside her chest, as if her soul had expanded, making room for another presence. Cassian gasped, his hand crushing hers, and she knew he felt it too, the irreversible merging of their essential selves. The golden light beneath her skin blazed brighter. It flowed through the connection, pouring into Cassian. He cried out, his body arching, and for one terrible moment Elena thought she'd killed him. Then light erupted from his skin too, pale silver mixing with her gold, creating something new, something that had never existed before. The bond snapped into place with an almost audible click. Elena and Cassian collapsed together, foreheads pressed close, breathing hard. She could feel him inside her mind now, not invading, but present. A constant awareness of his emotions, his thoughts, his existence, and she could feel herself inside him, her light filling dark places that had been empty for centuries. Elena. His voice in her mind, clear as spoken words. I can hear you. Your thoughts. Your yes, she thought back, and felt his wonder cascade through the bond. I hear you too. Extraordinary. Sienna stood at the circle's edge, her expression unreadable. A successful blood bond between vampire and Dhampir, the first in recorded history. Vivienne moved closer, her eyes wide. Cassian. Your skin. Cassian looked down at his hands. The deathly pallor had warmed slightly, and beneath his skin, silver light pulsed in rhythm with Elena's gold. Her light is changing you, Vivienne breathed, sharing her life force. You're not human, but you're not entirely dead anymore either. Elena felt Cassian's shock ripple through the bond. She sent back reassurance, warmth, acceptance. We're something new, she thought to him. Both of us. His mental voice was raw. I can feel your heartbeat inside my chest. Feel your breath as if it's mine. Elena, this is everything, she finished. Sienna raised her hands. The third trial is complete. Elena Ashford, you are hereby recognized as the Covenant's first sanctioned Dhampir. Lord Cassian, you are bound as her guardian and balance. Together, you will report to the Council within 1 month to discuss your place in our new order. She paused, studying them with those ancient black eyes. You've proven something I thought impossible. Perhaps the old ways deserve reconsideration after all. She glanced at Vivienne. Or perhaps you've simply doomed yourselves more thoroughly than execution ever could. Time will tell. Sienna vanished with her guards, leaving Elena and Cassian kneeling in the bonding circle, their hands still joined, their souls irrevocably entwined. Can you feel it? Cassian's thought was wonderstruck. The bond. It's like coming home, Elena finished. Yes, I feel it too. They rose together, the motion synchronized without planning. And as they stood in the candlelit hall, bound by blood and choice and something deeper than either, Elena finally understood what the trials had been trying to teach her. Love wasn't about choosing between worlds. It was about building a new one. The bond hummed between them like a living thing. Elena woke in the silver room, moonlight streaming through gauze curtains. She'd slept for the first time since the trials, exhaustion finally claiming her. But even in sleep, she'd felt Cassian a constant presence at the edge of her awareness, watching over her from somewhere in the manor. You're awake, his voice whispered through her mind, intimate as a touch. Where are you? The library. Couldn't sleep. Too much to his thought broke off, tangled with emotion she couldn't quite parse. Elena rose, pulled on the simple dress that had been waiting in the wardrobe. Her reflection in the tarnished mirror stopped her cold. She looked different. The golden light beneath her skin had settled into a permanent glow, subtle but unmistakable. Her eyes seemed brighter, more alert, and when she moved there was a grace she'd never possessed before, fluid, powerful, other. Don't be afraid, Cassian's thought came gently. You're still you, just more. She found him in the library as promised, surrounded by ancient texts, his hair falling forward as he studied a crumbling manuscript. He looked up when she entered, and the force of his emotion through the bond nearly staggered her relief. Wonder, possessiveness, fear, all tangled together. I've been researching blood bonds, he said aloud, his voice rough from disuse. Trying to understand what we've become. Elena settled beside him, their shoulders touching. The contact sent warmth flooding through the connection, comfort flowing both ways. His hand moved to a particular passage, finger tracing ancient script. Most vampire-human bonds are parasitic. The vampire dominates. The human becomes thrall, mindless, devoted, drained slowly. But bonds with Dhampir are supposed to be balanced, equal exchange of power. Supposed to be? There's never been a successful one to study. They all failed. His jaw tightened. But Elena, what I'm feeling through this bond, it's not balanced. You're giving far more than you're taking. I can feel your life force flowing into me constantly, warming me, changing me. She turned to face him fully, forcing him to meet her eyes. Is it hurting me? I can't tell. You feel strong, but what if it's gradual? What if over months or years, I drain you without meaning to? Elena took his hand, pressed it over her heart. The dual rhythm pulsed there, now her heartbeat and the echo of his, synchronized and strong. Feel that? I'm not weakening. I'm adapting. She gestured to the texts around them. Stop looking for reasons to fear this. I've spent 300 years being afraid, Elena. I don't know how to stop. Then let me be brave for both of us. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Through the bond, she felt his barriers cracking, centuries of self-imposed isolation beginning to crumble. You make it sound simple. It is simple. You just make it complicated. His laugh was startled, genuine. My pragmatic little baker. When did you become wise? When I bound myself to a philosophical vampire who thinks too much. He pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. Through the bond, emotions flowed freely now, his gratitude, her contentment, their shared wonder at this strange new existence. The moment shattered with the sound of breaking glass. Cassian was on his feet instantly, pushing Elena behind him. The east wing. Someone's inside. Another crash. Closer. Then Vivian's voice, sharp with alarm. Cassian, we have a problem. They found her in the main corridor. Her usual composure cracked. Blood stained her crimson dress, not her own, Elena realized. The scent was wrong, tinged with something chemical and foul. Hunters, Vivian gasped. A full squad, 20 strong. They're surrounding the manor. Someone told them about the Dhampir awakening, about the bond. They're here to... An explosion rocked the manor's foundation. Flames erupted in the entrance hall, hungry and spreading fast. Silver-laced incendiaries, Cassian snarled. They're trying to burn us out. He gripped Elena's hand. We need to run. The catacombs beneath the manor lead to the forest. They'll be watching every exit. Vivian's eyes gleamed with desperate calculation. Cassian. They have Dawncasters, military-grade UV weapons. Even with Elena's light buffering, direct exposure will kill me. I know. His hand tightened on Elena's. But she can survive sunlight. Elena, listen. You need to run. Use the catacombs. Get to the village. No. Her hands moved sharply. We're bonded. Your death is mine, remember? Then we break the bond. Sienna said it was irreversible. But there might be a way. There isn't. Vivian's voice was flat. Blood bonds this strong can only be severed by death. You know that. Another explosion. The manor groaned, ancient timbers beginning to surrender. Through the bond, Elena felt Cassian's mind racing, calculating odds, finding every scenario leading to her death. She cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. Stop trying to save me and start fighting with me. Elena, I'm not Marguerite. Her signs were fierce. I'm not fragile. I'm not helpless. I'm Dhampir, and I'm bonded to you, and I can do things even the Covenant doesn't understand yet. What are you suggesting? Elena turned to Vivienne. The hunters, they're human? Mostly. Some turn thralls for tracking. Why? Then they can be reasoned with. Elena's hands moved with growing certainty. I can heal, can share life force. What if I could show them there's another way? That Dhampir aren't threats, but bridges. Cassian breathed, understanding dawning. You want to prove your purpose. Use your power to demonstrate value. More than value. Hope. Elena's eyes blazed. How many of those hunters have lost people to vampire attacks? How many carry scars, trauma, rage? What if I could heal them? Show them that killing isn't the only option? They'll never listen, Vivienne said. Hunters are zealots. They've been trained to see anything non-human as evil. But they haven't seen anything like Elena. Cassian's voice held dangerous hope. A being who can walk in daylight, who survived the Covenant's trials, who bonded with a vampire without losing her humanity. If anyone could make them question their assumptions, footsteps thundered above them. Shouts, coordinated, and military precise. The hunters were inside. Elena squared her shoulders, felt Cassian's fear crash through the bond, and sent back her own fierce determination. Trust me. With my life, he murmured. With my soul, such as it is. Good. She took his hand. Then let's go show them what a Dhampir can really do. They moved through the burning manor together, Vivienne trailing behind with reluctant admiration. The flames parted around Elena, responding to the golden light pulsing beneath her skin. She could feel the heat, but it didn't harm her, couldn't harm her, not anymore. They emerged into the grand hall to find it filled with hunters. 20 warriors in black tactical gear, silver weapons gleaming, UV generators humming with deadly charge. At their center stood a man with a scarred face and eyes like flint. The vampire lord and his pet abomination. He growled. Commander Marcus said you'd resist. Doesn't matter. We have orders burn this place to ash and scatter what remains. Elena stepped forward before Cassian could stop her. The hunters raised their weapons, fingers on triggers. She raised her hands not in surrender, but in offering. Golden light blazed from her palms, so bright the hunters flinched, shielding their eyes. But it didn't burn. It warmed, healed. Elena could sense their wounds, old injuries poorly mended, vampire venom scars that still ached, trauma written into their very cells, and she reached out with her power, letting it flow through the space between them. The scarred commander gasped. His hand went to his throat, where claw marks had left permanent damage. Elena felt the tissue knitting, smoothing, the pain of years dissolving. What is this? His voice was clearer now, the rasp gone. This, Elena signed, knowing someone would translate, is what Dhampir can do, not destroy, heal, bridge the gap between your world and theirs. Her hands kept moving, speaking the language her voice never could. I was human once. I understand your fear, your rage at what vampires have taken from you. But killing me won't bring back what you've lost. It will only create more death, more rage, more empty spaces that can never be filled. The commander's weapon lowered fractionally. Around him, his squad was murmuring, some touching healed scars with wonder, others still rigid with training and fear. Let me show you another way, Elena signed. Let me prove that some bridges are worth preserving. Cassian's presence blazed through the bond pride, terror. Love so vast it threatened to unmake her. The commander stared at Elena for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lowered his weapon completely. Stand down, he ordered his squad. His eyes never left Elena's face. I need to make a call. And you, he pointed at Elena, you're going to explain exactly what you are, and why I shouldn't finish what we started. Elena nodded. Behind her, Cassian's hand found hers. And together, bound and blazing with shared light, they prepared to rewrite the rules that had governed their worlds for millennia. Or die trying. The commander's name was Declan Thorne, and his scars told a story Elena could read without words. They sat in what remained of the manor's dining hall, hunters positioned at every exit. Cassian stood behind Elena, his hand on her shoulder, protective, possessive, and radiating barely controlled violence through the bond. Vivienne had vanished the moment negotiations began, her survival instincts too sharp to stay for what might become a massacre. Declan placed a silver cross on the table between them. My daughter's, he said flatly. She was 7. Vampire raid on our village, 15 years ago. By the time we drove them off, 23 dead. Amelia was one of them. Elena's throat tightened. She could feel Cassian's guilt crashing through the bond, not for this specific crime, but for countless others like it, for what his kind had done to people like Declan. I've spent 15 years hunting your kind, Declan continued, eyes on Cassian. Killed 47 vampires, saved hundreds of lives, and now you expect me to believe this. He gestured at Elena. Changes anything? It changes everything, Elena signed. One of Declan's hunters, a young woman with kind eyes, translated in a soft voice. How? You healed some scars. Impressive. Doesn't bring back the dead. No, nothing can. Elena's hands moved slowly, deliberately. But I can prevent more death, on both sides. That's what Dhampir are meant to do, bridge the divide, end the cycle. Pretty words from something that's half monster. Cassian's hand tightened on Elena's shoulder. Careful, he said softly, dangerously. Or what? You'll kill me? Prove my point? Declan leaned forward. Here's what I see, a vampire who's found a way to weaponize human compassion. Bond with a girl powerful enough to heal, use her as a shield against hunters like me. Smart. Ruthless. Exactly what I'd expect from something that's lived 4 centuries by feeding on my kind. The words struck like physical blows. Elena felt Cassian's self-loathing surge through the bond, felt him start to pull away emotionally, if not physically. No, she thought fiercely at him. Don't you dare. He's right, Cassian said aloud, his voice hollow. Elena, he's right. I am using you. The bond gives me protection, power, a reason for the Covenant to let me live. Maybe I've been lying to myself about Elena stood so fast her chair crashed backward. She whirled on Cassian, her hands flying with furious speed. Stop. Lying. I'm not. You are. Her signs were sharp as knives. You're lying when you say you're using me. Lying when you pretend this bond is manipulation. You want to believe you're a monster because it's easier than believing you deserve. She stopped, hands trembling. Through the bond, she felt his raw vulnerability, the terror beneath his self-hatred. Deserve what? His mental voice was broken. Elena's hands moved. Gently now. Love. Redemption. A future that isn't just endless penance. Cassian staggered as if struck. Elena. Fascinating. Declan's voice cut through the moment. You really believe that, don't you? Believe he's worth saving. Elena turned back to him, lifted her chin. Yes. Why? What has he done to earn that faith? He opened his door. Elena signed simply. When I needed sanctuary, when 4 men hunted me with violence in their hearts, he could have let them take me. Could have stayed hidden, safe, alone, but he didn't. He chose to protect someone weaker than himself, knowing it would cost him everything. Once. He made one decent choice. He's made it every day since. Her hands moved faster now, passionate. Every night he hunts only those who've committed evil. Every year he's isolated himself to keep others safe from what he is. Every moment of these 400 years, he's fought against the monster the world tells him he has to be, and killed 17 people at a wedding when that fight failed. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Cassian's anguish flooded the bond, threatening to drown them both. I did, Cassian said quietly. I won't deny it, won't make excuses. I was weak, starving, and I let the hunger win. Those 17 lives are on my conscience forever. So why shouldn't I end you right now? Prevent the next 17? Because... Elena's translator spoke as her hands moved. Executing him won't prevent anything. It will just prove that violence is the only language our worlds can speak. That justice is only revenge with better publicity. Declan's expression flickered surprise. Maybe respect. You have a sharp tongue for someone who can't speak. I've had 19 years to think before I sign, Elena replied with a ghost of a smile. Despite himself, Declan's lips twitched. Then his expression hardened again. Let's say I believe you. Say I accept that you're genuine, that your vampire isn't playing some long game. What then? I report to my superiors that the Dhampir should live? They'll recall me. Send someone less flexible. Then work with us instead of against us. Cassian's voice was steady now, bolstered by Elena's faith flowing through the bond. You hunt vampires who prey on humans. So do I. We want the same thing, safety for the innocent. We're not the same. No. But we could be allies, Cassian gestured to Elena. She can heal your wounded, track vampires by their unnatural presence, even restore years of damage from venom exposure. I can fight beside you, use my strength and speed and centuries of knowledge. Together, we could save more lives than your hunters ever could alone. And what do you get out of this arrangement? Proof, Elena signed. Proof that vampires and humans don't have to be enemies. That Dhampir can serve a purpose beyond being executed as abominations. That there's a path forward besides endless war. Declan studied them both, his scarred face unreadable. Finally, he stood. I need to make some calls. Consult with people smarter than me. He paused at the door. Your healing, can it work on psychological damage? Trauma? Elena hesitated, then nodded slowly. I can try. I've never attempted it, but the theory, my second in command, Sarah. Declan nodded toward the young woman who'd been translating. Vampire thrall got into her mind 3 years ago. We broke the connection, but she still has nightmares. Panic attacks. If you could help her, I'll do everything I can, Elena signed immediately. Declan's expression softened almost imperceptibly. You've got 12 hours. I'll hold my team here until dawn tomorrow. If Sarah's better, if you can prove you're really what you claim, I'll take your proposal to the council. Can't promise they'll accept it, but I'll try. Thank you, Cassian said quietly. Don't thank me yet. If this goes wrong, I'll be the one who puts silver through your hearts. Declan left, his squad filing out behind him except for Sarah, who remained, trembling slightly. Elena approached her slowly, hands visible and non-threatening. May I? Sarah nodded, tears already streaming down her face. Please, I'm so tired of being afraid. Elena placed her glowing palms against Sarah's temples. The connection formed instantly, and Elena gasped at what she found. The thrall's mental claws were gone, but the scars remained, deep gouges in Sarah's psyche that bled fear and helplessness every waking moment. I see you, Elena thought, pushing healing warmth through the connection. I see what was done to you, and I'm so sorry. She worked for hours, Cassian's presence steady at her back, his strength flowing through the bond to sustain her. Slowly, painstakingly, Elena smoothed the jagged edges of Sarah's trauma, didn't erase the memories that would be violation of another kind but dulled their razor edges, gave Sarah's mind the tools to process rather than just endlessly relive. When Elena finally pulled back, exhausted, Sarah was sobbing, but the sound was relief, not anguish. It's quiet, Sarah whispered. My head is finally quiet. I can breathe without feeling him there. Elena swayed, and Cassian caught her immediately. Too much, he thought at her. You gave too much, I gave exactly enough, she countered. This is why I exist, Cassian. This is what I'm for. His arms tightened around her. Through the bond, she felt his wonder, his fear, his love no longer questioned or denied, just present, vast as the centuries he'd lived. Sarah stood shakily, wiping her eyes. I'll tell Declan. Tell him you're real, that this works. She paused at the door. Thank you. For giving me back myself. When she was gone, Elena collapsed against Cassian, letting him support her weight. Dawn was hours away, and with it, Declan's verdict. What if it's not enough? Cassian's thought was quiet. What if they still decide we're too dangerous? Elena turned in his arms, pressed her palm over his heart. Then we face it together. But Cassian? I think we just proved something even the Covenant hasn't managed. What's that? That mercy can be stronger than fear. And love, she hesitated, then continued firmly. Love can rewrite rules that have stood for millennia. His forehead dropped to hers. I love you, he whispered aloud, the words raw and new. I've been too afraid to say it, but Elena, I love you. Desperately, completely, in ways that terrify me. I know, she signed against his chest. I've felt it through the bond since the moment we connected. And you. Love you too. Obviously. Her smile was tired but radiant. Why else would I have left bread at a vampire's door for 100 days? His laugh was startled joy, and as they stood together, waiting for dawn and judgment, Elena felt the bond settle deeper, permanent, unbreakable, right. Whatever came next, they would face it as they'd faced everything since that first meeting. Together. The sun rose like judgment, painting Thornhaven's scarred walls in shades of amber and gold. Elena stood in the courtyard where she'd survived the first trial, Cassian beside her, Their hands joined. The bond hummed between them, steady as a heartbeat, strong as eternity. Around them, Declan's hunters waited in formation, weapons lowered but ready. Declan himself stood before them, his expression unreadable. Behind him, Sarah watched with clear, grateful eyes, healed, whole, transformed by Elena's gift. "I spoke with the council," Declan said finally. "Told them everything. What you are, what you can do, what you're offering." Elena's grip on Cassian's hand tightened. Through the bond, she felt his resignation. He expected rejection, execution, the same ending that had claimed Marguerite centuries ago. "They're afraid," Declan continued. "Afraid of what a Dhampir bonded to a vampire lord could become. Afraid of change. Afraid of hope, honestly." He paused, something shifting in his scarred features. "But Sarah testified, told them what you did for her, how you gave back what a vampire had stolen. And?" Cassian's voice was carefully neutral. "And I told them if they wanted to execute you, they'd have to go through me first." Declan's smile was grim. Surprisingly, that changed the conversation. "Turns out, losing your best commander makes even the council reconsider." Elena's breath caught. "You defended us?" "I defended the possibility of something better than endless war." Declan stepped closer. "Here's their offer. You work with us, hunt rogue vampires, heal victims, prove that Dhampir can serve humanity rather than threaten it. In exchange, they grant you provisional status. You live, you're protected, but you're watched, closely." "For how long?" Cassian asked. 10 years. If you maintain the balance, prove yourselves trustworthy, the provisional status becomes permanent. You'd be the first sanctioned vampire-Dhampir partnership in history." Declan's expression hardened. "But if you have to stand that round for my delatu, slip even once if innocents die. If you abuse your power, the entire Hunter Corps will descend on you. No trials, no mercy, clean execution." The terms hung in the air like a blade suspended by thread. Elena could feel Cassian's instinct to refuse, to reject any arrangement that put her in danger. But she could also feel something else, hope, fragile and new, that maybe, finally, he could have a purpose beyond penance. "We accept." Elena signed without hesitation. Elena. Cassian turned to her, anguish in his silver eyes. 10 years of being hunted if we make one mistake. Of you risking your life healing people who might turn on us anyway. I don't have to do anything. She signed firmly. "I choose to. Just like I chose the trials. Just like I chose the bond. This is my choice, Cassian. Let me make it." Through the connection, she felt his walls finally, completely crumble. 400 years of isolation, of believing he had to face everything alone, dissolved, beneath the simple truth that she was choosing him. Again and again, she was choosing him. "Together," he whispered. "We do this together." "Always," she promised. Declan nodded slowly. "Then we have an accord. Report to the Hunters' outpost in Prague within the month. We'll start with small assignments, tracking, negotiation, healing. Prove yourselves there, and we'll expand your authority." He extended his hand to Cassian. After a heartbeat's hesitation, Cassian gripped it firmly. "One more thing," Declan said, not releasing the handshake. "The girl at the village, the baker's daughter who supposedly went missing at the vampire's manor. What do we tell them?" Elena's heart clenched. Her father, the village, her old life waiting like a ghost. "Tell them the truth," she signed. "Tell them I'm alive, I'm safe, and I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. They won't understand, won't accept. My father will." Elena's signs were certain. "And the others they'll have to learn. Just like the Hunters are learning, just like the Covenant is learning, that there are more than two sides to every story." Declan studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll do what I can, but Elena going back to the village might not be possible. Not for a long time. Maybe never. Are you prepared for that?" She looked at Cassian, at the bond that tied them together, at the future spreading before them like an unwritten page. "I left bread at a vampire's door for 100 days, she signed. "I was preparing for this long before I knew what it meant." The Hunters left at midday, Declan promising to send word about their first assignment. Vivienne emerged from wherever she'd been hiding, took one look at Elena and Cassian standing together in the sunlight, both of them glowing faintly, gold and silver intertwined, and laughed. "Well, brother, you've gone and done it, broken every rule, survived every trial, and somehow convinced the Hunters to work with you. She shook her head in mock disbelief. Mother would be horrified. I'm almost impressed. Almost. Cassian's tone was dry, but Elena felt his affection for his sister through the bond complicated, damaged, but real. Don't let it go to your head. Vivienne's expression sobered. The council will test you, push you to fail. They want order, not revolution. And you two, she gestured between them. You're revolution incarnate. Then we'll survive it the same way we've survived everything else, Cassian said quietly, his arm sliding around Elena's waist. Together, Elena added. Vivienne's smile was equal parts envy and pride. Yes. Well, try not to die spectacularly. I've grown rather fond of my sister-in-law. She vanished before Elena could process the words. Sister-in-law. The title settled warm in her chest, unexpected and precious. Did she just Vivienne doesn't say things she doesn't mean? Cassian's thought was amused. Which I suppose makes this official. Makes what official? He turned her to face him, fully, his hands framing her face with reverent gentleness. Elena Ashford, we're bonded by blood, bound by trials, tied together by something neither of us fully understands. But there's one bond we haven't made yet. Her heart thundered against her ribs. Cassian, the human bond, the choice humans make when they want to build a life with someone. His voice was steady, but his emotions through the connection were anything but hope and terror and love so vast it threatened to unmake them both. I know I can't give you a normal life, can't give you children or aging gracefully or any of the things a human husband could offer, but I can give you eternity, if you'll have it. Partnership, purpose, and love so much love it terrifies me. You're asking me to marry you, Elena signed, wonder blooming in her chest. I'm asking you to choose immortality on your terms, not as my thrall, not as something lesser, as my equal, my partner in every way that matters. He knelt before her, there, in the courtyard where they'd faced trials and hunters, and the possibility of death. Marry me, Elena. Let me spend eternity proving I'm worthy of the faith you've shown me. Elena pulled him to his feet, refusing to let him kneel. No. His face went carefully blank, but the bond betrayed his devastation. Not like that, she signed quickly. I won't have you kneeling. Won't have you asking as if you're less than me. We're equals, remember? So ask me again. As an equal. Understanding dawned. Cassian straightened, met her eyes with his silver gaze level and unwavering. Elena Ashford, will you marry me? Will you walk beside me through whatever eternity brings? Will you be my wife, my partner, my equal in all things? Yes, she signed, tears streaming down her face. Yes, to all of it. To eternity and partnership and love. Yes. He kissed her then, gentle and reverent, and through the bond their souls sang in perfect harmony. Gold and silver light blazed around them, visible even in the full sun, marking them as something unprecedented, something new. When they finally broke apart, Cassian pressed his forehead to hers. We should tell your father. He deserves to know his daughter's getting married, even if the groom is a 400-year-old vampire. Elena laughed no sound, but her whole body shook with it, especially because the groom is a 400-year-old vampire. Papa will love that. He threatened to haunt me if I didn't take care of you. See? He already approves. They walked into the manor together, planning a wedding that would unite human and vampire traditions, already arguing about details with the comfortable ease of partners who knew they had eternity to figure it out. Behind them, the sun climbed higher, warming the stones of Thornhaven Manor for the first time in centuries. And on the threshold where Elena had once left bread, where a lonely vampire had finally found the courage to open his door, a single loaf waited. Fresh baked that morning by Marcus Ashford, left with a note in careful script. For my daughter and her vampire, may your mornings always be warm. 5 years later, Elena stood at Thornhaven's threshold, a loaf of warm bread in her hands. Dawn painted the sky in shades of amber and rose, the world caught between darkness and light, that liminal space she'd come to understand as home. Cassian emerged from the manor, moving easily in the early sun. Her light had changed him slowly over the years. He could tolerate dawn now, even walk in full daylight for brief periods. Not human, never that, but no longer entirely bound by night's limitations. She offered him half the bread. He took it, still marveling after all this time that food tasted like food again rather than ash. That her presence had restored not just light to his existence, but flavor, warmth, the small joys he'd forgotten mortality held. Day 100, he murmured, understanding the symbolism. 5 years of marriage. 60 months of hunting. Together. 100 dawns since we established the sanctuary. The sanctuary, their greatest achievement. A place where humans traumatized by vampires could heal, where vampires seeking redemption could find purpose, where the two worlds met as equals rather than enemies. It had started small, just them and a handful of Declan's hunters. Now it spanned 3 countries, healing hundreds. Elena set down the bread, signing against his chest where his heart beat slow and steady. 100 dawns, and 10,000 more to come. At least, he agreed, pulling her close. Through the bond stronger now, refined by years of partnership, she felt his contentment, his peace. The loneliness that had defined him for centuries, finally, completely gone. She'd chosen immortality, but on her own terms. Dhampir didn't age as humans did. She'd grow old eventually, but slowly, centuries spreading before them like an unwritten story. Time enough for everything. Time enough for love. The sun crested, the hills, and they stood together in its light, vampire and Dhampir, husband and wife, darkness and dawn intertwined. No longer 2 separate beings trying to find balance, but something unified and whole. Something unprecedented. Behind them, the manor's windows blazed gold. Inside, the sanctuary's residents were waking human and vampire both, learning to coexist, learning that the old rules could be rewritten by those brave enough to try. And on the threshold where it had all begun, warm bread waited like a promise, like prayer, like love made tangible in flour and faith, and the courage to keep knocking, even when no one had answered for 99 days. Because on day 100, everything changed, and every dawn since had been theirs. In the space between darkness and light, they built a world neither had dared to imagine. And every morning, bread still warmed on the threshold, no longer an offering to the unknown, but a celebration of the extraordinary love they'd forged, from impossible choices, binding 2 souls across the forever they'd chosen together.